I'm Cynthia Macioce, and I am the drama director, artistic director here at Gahanna Lincoln High School. I became a theater teacher because I wanted to share my passion with younger people. It was interesting. I was doing some professional work, and on the days off when they would ask for volunteers to go into schools, I was always one of those who would volunteer to do that. And I kind of picked up on the signal that maybe this is where I was supposed to be. I also had a mentor in college, Professor Fred Thayer, who was one of the most wonderful people in the world, who said, you need to be in education. So that is how I got involved. I feel like my job here at GLHS, while it is a job and I do get paid, it's a passion. And it's one of the most wonderful things I can think of. My dad used to tell me that if you did something your entire life that you enjoyed, it's not going to be a job. I prefer to think of it as a career, and I've been very, very fortunate these last 30 years plus to be a part of something so wonderful. My favorite part about being a theater teacher director, I think it would have to be those moments when I see kids truly connect to what they're doing on stage. They find those aha moments that you know are going to stay with them, whether they go into the theater world or not once they graduate from high school. Those are moments that they're always going to remember and take with them. My least favorite part of being a theater teacher / director would have to be the paperwork. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it. I just want to teach. However, with every job, there are going to be instances where you have to do what is needed, and the administration says this is needed, so we do the paperwork.
Right, exactly.
I just prefer not to look at it until I absolutely have to. So what does it take to put together a production? We at Gahanna do 6 shows a year. We'll do 3 black box and 3 main stage. For all of our straight shows, fall play, some of the things in the middle, we will usually take a 6-week rehearsal period. If it's a musical, it's usually an 8-week rehearsal period. And I think one of the things that I think is important for people to understand is they see the finished product, but they don't necessarily see all the work that goes into it. I draw comparisons all the time with athletics, and I will say that a lot of people don't necessarily see the practice that goes in. They only see you making the foul shot or not. So for us, the learning, the process is so incredibly important. And I think that's one of the building blocks for future endeavors for a lot of these kids is learning time management and creative thinking and analysis of things and making choices. And I think that's a huge component of what we do in the theater. It requires a lot of stamina, a lot of hard work, a lot of creative thinking outside the box, a lot of thinking on your feet. And I think that's what employers should be looking at. Some of my most favorite shows are a few of the musicals we've done. Jesus Christ Superstar was one of my favorite. We did it as a rock opera and exposed all the lights, and it was the first year with our new sound system, so that theater rocked. It was a nice show, a solid show. And Jekyll and Hyde, another one of our favorites. Beauty and the Beast, because it's visually such a pretty show. I think, though, if I were saying we went to a mountaintop with one of the shows, it would have to be Les Mis. We had right people, right place, right time. The stars aligned. Everything was in its correct orbit, and we were able to affect people. And I think that's one of the things I look for in a show is are we able to affect people and maybe hopefully change minds. I think hands down my favorite fall play that we've ever done would have to be To Kill a Mockingbird. It was a gamble. We took a chance, and I was very, very pleased with the outcome of that show. We have to learn from our history in order to move on, and you can't change history even though we may want to, and I think that was one of the things. We took a giant leap of faith with that show, and again, had the right people in the right place at the right time, and I never felt better about leaving a fall show than I did that one. I think one of the hardest shows to do, and the one that was our, I don't know, things just didn't align correctly, was Peter Pan. You would think that, oh, it's a kid's show, not a big deal, but we did everything we thought correctly. We brought in SFX to help us with the fly sequences and brought the professionals in to train us, and we just had a really hard time getting everything together. We had a 6-week period, not an 8-week period in which to do it, and that did affect the outcome of that show. We had nice audiences, but certainly not what we are used to having. Even though that was probably my biggest challenge to date, it was a show that I don't regret doing it, but I don't know if I'd be willing to do that again anytime in the near future. I think one of the most challenging things so far, being a theater director, is how the kids have progressed or not progressed toward this lack of coping skill, this lack of grit that we really would like to see in the theater world. Just because you don't get cast in a show doesn't necessarily mean that we don't like you. We serve the show, bottom line. It's bigger than me as a director, it's bigger than the students, it's bigger than anyone else. And so when parents start to get involved and demand to know why something went the way it did, I guess that's hard, because we're trying to teach the kids that there is a life outside of high school and you need to be prepared for it. And we fight that battle, I think, on a constant basis. For our production of Les Miserables, I did have a group of concerned citizens who came to speak to me about doing the show. And we sat down at the table and they handed over to me 3.5 pages typed of things that they didn't necessarily feel they wanted to see in the show. And I half jokingly said I didn't know I was going to need a lawyer. And they said, no, we just want to talk with you about these things. And most of it centered around the docks scene with the prostitutes. And I said, what is it that you'd like me to do? And they said, well, we'd like you not to do the show. And I said, well, since that can't happen, how else may I help you with that? I didn't want to tell them that my daughter had been cast as one of the prostitutes. And every day, as we'd get in the car to come to school, I would say, Julie, I want you to go out there and be the best prostitute you can today. And she would say, okay, Mom. The kids know it's pretend, it's illusion. And her concern was that it wasn't necessarily of a moral value. And I said, ma'am, with all due respect, I can't think of a better show that shows salvation and forgiveness in such a wonderful way. So we agreed to disagree. I told her I would put PG-13 on the poster, and I did, and we went on our way.
One of the most successful shows at GLHS.
It was one of the most successful shows we've ever had, yes. Should theater be included in a curriculum at the secondary level? I'm a little biased, but I do think that theater has so many intangible qualities that these kids definitely need at this stage. They're learning about themselves, and how much fun to learn about yourself through someone else on a stage. You know, we're taking that let's pretend element of it and putting it out there, but also making some discoveries and taking some safe risks that we definitely enjoy. Many of my alumni come back, and those who haven't necessarily been involved in theater and will definitely tell me that it's been a plus to have a theater course or class. Here at Gahanna, it's not uncommon for kids to go through the program 4 years, sometimes 5 if they've been cast in shows early in their middle school years. So those bonds, those relationships, the qualities that we take away from a theater curriculum, they're invaluable. And I think more people need to pay attention to the fact that theater is not a luxury, it's a necessity. My best experience so far as theater director would have to be the connection I make with the kids. It happens every year. I enjoy it. It's one of the most favorite things I have. I take kids who are not confident in themselves and hopefully make them aware of how wonderful they really are. And you really can't ask for anything better than that. My main goal of being the theater director, artistic director here at Gahanna Lincoln High School, I think, is to instill a passion and an appreciation for theater in everyday living. We forget how much we can affect people from the stage, and how our lives can change and how our views can be shaped by watching someone else or us on stage, if you will. It's one of the things I think that theater makes you think, and it makes you appreciate life. And as Emily says in our town, does anyone ever really appreciate life every minute? And I think that's such a question that we ask in the theater. We just need to learn to appreciate life. What I want the audiences to take away from a GLHS production is actually the mantra that we use here. And I tell the kids from day one that the whole is always going to be greater than the sum of its parts. And I want the community and the people who attend our shows to come away with a sense of family and ensemble. I want them to understand that they are witness to and are actually involved with our shows from a different perspective, obviously, not from a crew perspective or a cast perspective, but they're as important as we are, because without them, do we really create theater? I guess that's a philosophical question that we could get into, but I do think that I want them to understand that theater is needed and it's appreciated, and I want them to see our kids. I want them to see how talented they are and how proud they can be of the fact that we're able to create discipline and time management and self-awareness and all of those things that you don't really think about when you go to see a show.